Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Livin The Dream video and audio podcast. My name is Rishi Barran. I am at the Dan Patrick School of Sportscasting, where I'm an instructor, and I've had a chance to teach a lot of great students over the years. And this video podcast is meant to celebrate them and their success in their career. And one of the first I met, maybe literally the first, maybe the second I met ever during my time there, is with us tonight. He's the first valedictorian of the first graduating class to complete the full program. His name is Adrian Donnelly, and this has been a long time coming. I'm glad we got him on tonight. Adrian, how are you doing? It's good to have you with us.
I'm doing great, Rishi. Thanks for the chance to come back on and reconnect with the Full Sail community and everybody enjoying the program right now.
It's always good to connect with you, Adrian. One thing that I always used to do, and this was early on in the program, Adrian would be the guy I would go to when I had questions about what was the pulse of the students, right? Because Adrian would always be honest with me. He wouldn't sugarcoat it. He wouldn't balloon it up. He would always tell me the truth. So I always appreciated that about him. And now he has just received a promotion very recently to become the assistant athletic director for communications at the College of St. Rose in Albany, New York, right near where he grew up. Adrian, it has been quite a ride to get there, from your time in Full Sail to before then to where you are now. But let's start all the way at the beginning. Where did this dream start that you wanted to get into the sports broadcasting business?
I think with so many other people in this program, sports has been ingrained in our lives from youth, playing, whether it's soccer, baseball, basketball, all those sports, just super involved with that growing up. And as it's time to move forward in high school and try to carve out a career path and something that you can really picture yourself seeing, happiness all the way through retirement, I gravitated towards sports. And, leaving high school, I went originally to SUNY Cortland, one of the esteemed universities of New York programs. And I went and completed a sports management major there. So I went and spent 4 years out in Central New York and went through that program and entered the workforce and started working in sports. And I was directing leagues and directing tournaments at some private sports facilities and some YMCA type places. And eventually my career path just jumped around, and I still stayed in sports, and then moved down to Florida, and then got into construction and doing some engineering stuff, and phased out of the sports and recreation stuff. And then as I saw, the Dan Patrick School forming and thought about just the career opportunities that I really just felt like I missed out on early in life. And not that I was necessarily always aspiring to be a broadcaster or any sorts of things like that. I just wanted to find as many ways that I could keep sports in my life and my career. And when I originally went through the sports management side of things, I always envisioned myself working in a front office of a team of some sorts. And going through college, I did radio stuff. I hosted some sports podcasts with some friends the first go around, and that kind of opened my eyes to, some of the skills that I thought I had. And, and then I think as time went on and the opportunity opened up with the Dan Patrick School, it was, let's take a bigger shot at it and see how my skills can fit into what opportunities might come from here.
SUNY Cortland, probably about, I want to say like 35 minutes from where I grew up. Another reason that we formed a good connection. And obviously, I know, it's a pretty sports rabid area in that region of the country. You mentioned kind of being involved from when you were a kid. Did you have any figures in the sports media that you looked up to when you were growing up?
Yeah, as a kid, I grew up without cable. So I didn't have any ability to watch any Yankees games, and I'm a huge Yankee fan. So for the time being, for a lot of my youth, and I really spent it listening and even sitting in like the driveway of my parents' house, listening to John Sterling on the radio. And I don't necessarily love John Sterling. Like, he's not like an icon, that, like, I don't need to go into that or anything like that, but just those are like memories that you have as a kid, you're sitting there and, your dad might be out there with you or any sort of thing like that, or just like enjoying moments like that. We had, the rabbit ears to get, NFL broadcast on Sunday on like basic Fox and CBS and stuff. So him and I would always celebrate, Giants games together and stuff like that. And, I think that the bond between, a father and a kid is what draws a lot of people just to have sports be such a special thing in their life. And those are the memories that I draw back to is, listening to Yankee games on the radio and enjoying football broadcasts with my dad. And that's what really entrenched me into my love of sports.
I can tell just by hearing you say that's still got just such a special place in your heart. Kind of the tone of your voice changed a little bit, and I can tell that's a great memory for you. You mentioned some of the stuff you were involved in terms of kind of media stuff early on, but one thing I was always impressed about with you were always very well-spoken, very confident, and very well-researched. You had a great depth of knowledge. So besides your early experience doing a little bit of the media stuff, was there anything else that helped you to seem maybe a little bit more polished coming into our program than some people who didn't have any experience?
Rough skills, I think I developed over time, just doing little stuff. Like with my cousins and my brother and sisters, we made a ton of movies as kids. So I think just from a term, terms of like, it's not necessarily acting skills. I'm not an actor by any sense of it, but I think I have range with my voice, and there's things that, that I'm able to do, and, almost a little bit of character-y, ness that I can play into. And a lot of that can date back to just making VHS movies with my brother and my cousins and stuff like that. And even just doing little things that I remember, like announcing like the PA lineups at Little League game, like stuff like that, you're 14 or 15 years old at the time, but like you wanted to like be the best at that. And the inflection that you put on your voice and the way that you can like make it sound as cool and professional as you could, for your friends that were doing that, like those are all like little things I remember back in the day that I look back on now, and they're kind of special ways that I would just take opportunities to try to get better at something I didn't know that I can necessarily have a chance to do it in the future.
Good move by Mueller. She's into more space. One to beat. Cuts to the right. And what a beautiful goal. Yanina Mueller strikes first for the Golden Knights. 13 minutes
so
in.
Then years and years later, you're working on a construction site. You're sitting at your place at Rocky Point in Tampa, Florida. And all of a sudden, something comes up that changes the course of the direction that you're taking with your life. You found out about the Dan Patrick School of Sportscasting, but what caused you to take that leap?
I remember the first time I think I ever heard of it, I read an article in like the Sports Business Journal, and I was sitting in a hotel room in Texas working on a job site. And I don't think I'd been home in like 2 or 3 weeks, and I was just like, what, you're just so out of like your regular routine of stuff, and like you're just not feeling like yourself, and you just feel like you just need to press a reset button on like more things than just a job, and it was just one of those times where I probably wasn't feeling the best about myself or my life and my career. And it's weird that those signs kind of develop when they do. And then of course there's a whole nother step of just seeing an advertisement and being like, yes, that's what I want, and then there's the whole process of, fitting that into your life. And do you need to move to make this stuff happen? How are you going to, pay for this and all of that? Or is your family going to support a move like this, especially after you've already gone through 4 years of college before? So then there was just a lot of question marks that were raised at that point of, now this is something I found out that like I know that I want, but how can I get from A to Z and get everything in between in order for this, to even take flight?
And that led you to do something that, as far as I can think, nobody else has done at this point, is made the commute that you made, especially with how involved you were driving from Tampa to Orlando. Let's put this into perspective. It wasn't just for classes. You would broadcast a ton of Rollins games. You would come to a bunch of extra events that we had. You said you wanted to live, be able to do it somewhere that could work in terms of being able to pay for it and also be able to live, in an area that fit. So you, if I remember correctly, kept working a full-time job and commuted. How did you make that work?
I got a little bit lucky that the work that I was able to find was overnight based stuff. I was working in a hotel and I was putting in, 40 hours a week there, and that was the funding, in order to make it all happen and, continue to pay rent and pay for gas and food and all the necessities. And, bringing up what you said about just making sure I was there for everything. I just never wanted, the commute was my choice. Like nobody, I didn't apply to this school and somebody said that you need to live in Tampa to make this happen. Tampa was a place that still is like really special to me. And I had friends there that I didn't want to leave at this point in time. And I just never wanted it to ever be a crutch that I could use as an excuse, where it was like, oh, well, how come Adrian didn't show up to complete his IL hours on Friday or anything like that. Like it never at a point in time did I want that commute. That was my choice and something that a position that I put myself in. I never wanted it to affect, how classes were scheduled on my behalf or the opportunities that I had at that point in time. I wanted to go into this and make sure that I could soak up every last bit that I could. And if that meant having to drive, sometimes 4 hours round trip, just do an extra Rollins game, or, making it out there for a day for the WWE internship on a day where we didn't have classes, there was never a point in time where I was going to let that be like a reason that I wasn't going to show up and have that experience be checked off in my box.
Yeah. And the Full Sail experience to begin with is so immersive in terms of the fast pace and how much you're doing in a short period of time. Then you take the fatigue of all that other stuff. Were there points where you wondered if you wanted to keep doing it?
There were some days I think that were harder than most. There were some months that, that were harder than most, where I'm like, oh my, where sometimes you sit in through the first week of a course and that it's just not like perfectly fit into what it is that you're interested in or necessarily looking to do. But it's all kind of just like trusting the process, and I did put a lot of trust in Gus and you and all of the other people who were there from day one, people who had been in this industry and just really, I really just put it all in your hands that the time that I was putting into this and the resources that I was spending and all of this was just going to be worth it in the end, because these people truly were the best and they've been to the places that I wanted to be in, and who else better would I want to be learning from? And like exactly like you said, it's an immersive learning experience. If I wasn't looking for those chances, I would have done the online. And I wanted the chances to be, on camera as much as possible. I wanted the chances to do play-by-play stuff. And in order to do that, I needed to be in Orlando as much as possible.
We're talking to Adrian Donnelly, the newly minted assistant. I want to make sure I'm saying it right. Assistant athletic director for communications. And he also does a bunch of play-by-play at the College of St. Rose in Albany, New York.
The sun in the eyes of Grace Young on this one. McPeak comes in. She scores! Katie McPeak, the game winner with 1:24 left in the first overtime session to close the 2022 season with a victory for the Golden Knights.
I remember the first time I met you and the second time I met you. So the first time was when you guys had the Hall of Fame week and Dan was there, and I was really impressed. I'll be honest with you. The first time I saw you perform, we had kind of a short conversation, maybe a couple of short conversations while I was there, because I didn't know anybody but Gus when I showed up to that thing. And then I ran into you at an establishment in downtown Tampa. Well, actually, you saw me there, and we didn't talk because I think you told me I wasn't sure if you got the job or not. And then we ran into one again right before you had class with me. It was always fun seeing you and getting to talk to you. But what did you think of not just me, but all these instructors coming in when you're the first set of students and you just know these people by kind of their credentials, but not by anything else. What did you think of all of us when you started each class?
I always went into it with the maximum amount of optimism as possible. I never went in there with any sort of, prejudice or expectation of what it is. And a lot of it was helpful because there was never a class that completed what we were doing ahead of us. So there wasn't anybody who you'd catch up with at different events or anything that was like, okay, what month are you in? Oh, I'm in this. Oh, I just finished that. And then, just natural reaction of people is to be like, yeah, this was the best part and this was the worst part. So to never have those type of interactions with anybody and to just kind of be like subject number one moving through like across each step, I think it was almost kind of freeing. Like it wasn't like a game of roulette. It was, but in the sense of like, okay, I'm going to spin this wheel and no matter who it lands on, it's going to be a cool class. And like I said, I trust that it's going to be a cool instructor that got hired in that place. There's so many different things to learn across this program and a lot of classes that in order to get you to that point, and takes a variety of different perspectives to get you there. So I was like super happy with everybody that was assigned to what it was that they were covering. And a lot of the people that were teaching those courses were, just like you, just became friends throughout the process.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. It means a lot to me because I think very highly of you, and it's so awesome to see the success that you're having. Now, you had a unique experience for sure in the program. What were the pros and the cons of being that first class?
The pros of it, I think, were what I kind of just mentioned on. I enjoyed being like the first group of people to go through it all. I liked being the ones to establish, the norms of a lot of building blocks that I think you guys might have had in place to right now. And, it was a lot of trial and error probably at that point in time. And I'm sure some things have changed and I'm sure some different things have been refined, but, indirectly, the group that I was with had a lot of hand in that process. And, we might, to look back, 10 or 15 years from now and know that we were trailblazers like through that course and God willing, if it's still, going on at that point in time and it's successful and other people, are able to stake claim and build careers off of this, then, I feel like the kind of, like the first group of astronauts, it's like we went to the moon and nobody told us, how cold it was going to be, going up there or how loud it was going to be. And it's just a group of people that all kind of signed up together and wanted to see where this thing could go over the course of, what was it, 20 months? I couldn't remember. 20 months.
20 months. Probably felt like longer, didn't it?
Yeah, it felt way shorter than that. And it's just, that's probably my favorite part of it all is being there from essentially day one and having this indirect influence on what it's become to this point. You asked about my least favorite things. I think just some of just like the overall like educational like regulatory things that just needed to be checked off, in order for just this school to exist that we all had to go through. And that's just, I'd be moaning and groaning about the same stuff if it was at
any college,
Arizona State or anything
right.
of the sort, just the indirect things that necessarily didn't really have much involvement in what you needed to do and how much it might have taken up your time at some points. But, it's all part of the process and all part of what you needed to go through. So it's just, another stepping stone. So overall, the experience was incredibly positive that I had there, life changing, and there's a lot of things in my life that I owe and have been in place because of my time in that program.
And we owe a lot to you, and you really were a pioneer. And I don't use that term lightly. You were at the school before I was. So, and I was the second instructor hired. So that's pretty amazing that you were there. The only people that were there from the absolute beginning were you and your group and Gus, right? So that's just a testament to you. And you're right. A lot of things have changed. I remember we had and I don't know if you remember this or not, we had a bonus IL day. We did like early in the morning on like a Friday or a Saturday. I don't even remember what day of the week it was, but it was not a time that I think was the most convenient for all of you. And we did this activity where it was kind of like these bonus activities we didn't get to during the month. And it was like, oh, come up with your own cliches or something. And I remember you being like, this is the dumbest activity ever. Like, why would we do this? We don't want to use cliches. Why are we doing this? And guess what? We never did that activity again. So even little things like that make a difference.
Everybody can write a thank you card to me for never having to do the cliche activity again.
Yeah. And let's get back to the Rollins, right? So we mentioned that earlier. Your job now, there's so many things that tie into what you did at Rollins, right? Your Division II school, the play-by-play, seeing how things work behind the scenes with the other parts of your job now.
Floated into the box, a header by Britt, and the follow-up, Jen Bartlett scores as time expires, and the Golden Knights defeat Lemoyne 2-1.
You really pushed hard with that and went all in on the Rollins. What were some of the benefits that you got from the investment you made into not only calling those games, but to putting a lot of work into them?
Could you handle anything like that alley-oop that Lowe just threw down?
Oh
from
yeah,
Castaneda?
I could handle the alley. I couldn't do the oop.
So you would need a Daniel Lowe on the other
Yes,
end
I
to
would.
throw it down?
Yes, I would.
So you were happy picking up the assist on a play like that. You still end up in the highlights.
Rollins was an incredible opportunity for, and is this still going on? Is that partnership still connected?
Yes,
That's
sir.
awesome to hear. So it's almost to a point in where what you guys were doing and are doing at Rollins is like, now that I'm in the role that I am right now, like I want like the Dan Patrick School to work with me, like, and my communications team there. But just the experiences there to be able to do play-by-play, to learn the inside outs of what makes a from the collegiate side of things, like what makes our job easier as broadcasters, whether it was rosters being available or, pronunciations, being provided to broadcasters beforehand. I kind of have gotten that chance to have that perspective of, okay, when I was working at Rollins as a contractor and doing these things, and just working on a game by game basis, figuring out how that translates to what I do now at St. Rose and the ways that I can be as efficient as possible, like in this job. I remember the guy, his name was Nate Winance, I think. He was the in charge of communications or the SID, whatever his title was at that point in time. And I just remember at that point, I'm like, man, he's got like such a cool job, like he like gets to work on this beautiful campus, first of all, and just be, in charge of like the communications, like across like all these programs. And I just remember thinking to myself, like in his role, like imagine like the content that you could create to have 19 or 20, Division II teams at just your disposal, where it's like, that's hundreds of kids, it's not like if you're working social media for the Tampa Bay Rays, what is there? Maybe there's 15 people that you might have, players that you actually, can talk to and connect with and create like, valuable content off of. Now, all of a sudden you have hundreds of kids at your disposal to be able to create Instagram reels or YouTube videos and anything of the sorts like that. So I remember being at Rollins and having that perspective of Nate and seeing like, man, that's such a cool job. Like, maybe if things don't work out, for me on like on a on-camera, reporting role or anything of the sorts, like that's definitely something where I know that the skills that we're building in this program would be able to fit into a role like that. So more than anything, like besides enjoying the play-by-play stuff at Rollins and having the chance to do the broadcast there and calling some super cool moments there, I remember having that perspective of over, seeing how Nate handled himself in that role. And that was always noted in my mind of being like, oh, that's always an option of something I can do.
He was so good. He's not there anymore. He and his family moved, but he was just the top. I mean, I've dealt with a lot of sports information directors over my time at many different levels of many different sports, and he's definitely up there at the top. I mean, he was that good, especially with how he managed so many things. One thing, Adrian, that's still, I think, a challenge for us with those games is the fact that we have different crews going to call the games. And I know that was the case for you. And I remember you having a conversation at one of our play-by-play seminars or something when we were talking about kind of keeping storylines fresh. And we had those media days at the beginning of the year, and, you know, different crews are repeating the same storylines. And I know you always made a point to try to get new information to spice up the broadcast and not make it sound the same every time. Can you explain the process you went through to do that?
Back then, like through the Rollins stuff?
Yeah.
I think for me, and a lot of this is still like habits that built into how I prepare for like a play-by-play broadcast, like in today's day. Whether I always went back and would always watch the first 15, maybe 20 minutes, maybe even first half, whatever it would be, of whatever home game, or if we were doing that broadcast, I would especially go back and watch that to make sure that, because that's when everybody would love to shoot off their quick storylines after the first 5 minutes and the action in a soccer game has settled down. And now it's like story dump, where it's like, you know, so-and-so is a scholastic All-American, you know, and it's like, we've known that for the last 10 games, you know? So making cross-referencing, you know, if Joe and Dean, I'm making up two names, are doing the soccer game from 2 nights before, and I got the one on Saturday, I would always kind of go through and make sure that in their kind of opening hitters that I wasn't stepping on what was essentially shared already at that point. And now that habit is taken off into how I prepare for broadcast now, because I'm going back and I'll even watch a really heavy dose of whatever game the opposite team I'm preparing for, whether it's home or away, I'll watch their stuff, always writing down, especially in soccer, like what the team's like starting formation was the match before, to know like that this is my preparation. So I'm not flying off and having to scramble to figure out who these 11 players are in the field at one point in time. I had forgotten about those meetings and those reactions to that point in time. But as you bring it up now, I'm kind of seeing how those habits kind of formed and have stood to where they are right now, based off kind of how I was reacting to how others were broadcasting their games at that point in time as well.
That's great advice, though, to go back and look at the formations and all that. So I hope the people watching are taking notes right now. And if you weren't, go back and watch few minutes ago when he was talking about all that. I think this is going to be high praise for you, Adrian, and I'm certainly not putting you at his level at this point yet. Maybe you are. I haven't heard you in a little while, but Mike Tirico had a Zoom session with us, and he had a lot of little tidbits that everybody kind of took notes on. So I hope people do the same here with you and take notes on what you're saying, because that's going to make these Rollins broadcasts much, much better. We're talking to Adrian Donnelly, first valedictorian of the Dan Patrick School of Sportscasting. I know that meant a lot to you. What was graduation week like, being the first graduating class and getting to walk across that stage?
So graduation week, I remember that very clearly. This is not the point in time to be taking notes in the class, but I was like just out of gas at that point in time. Like, you know, you brought it up, of kind of how I was stretching myself thin between Tampa and Orlando. And my energy level was just, I was on E and just kind of maintaining. And that's kind of my one regret in all of this, is I wish I finished a little bit stronger. We all kind of got to the point where we were all looking for jobs across those, and it wasn't even just that last month. The job hunt started 60 days, 90 days before graduation. So that just amped up the stress of like really just not knowing where you were even going to be living or what life would even look like after, the middle of October. So that was eating at me a lot. Wasn't sleeping well, stressed over, finishing up the final assignments. I had a lot of family come in for graduation from New York. they're all asking for tickets, and and that's a process everybody's going to have to go through, and just figuring out all that stuff. And it was certainly a relief when the time came, and things kind of wrapped up, and we could take a step back and evaluate everyone's success.
Do you have any advice for people going into those final few months? Because that sounds like it, and I think it is for everyone in some way. It's a stressful time. Whether it's something you did well or something that you look back on and you say, I wish I did that differently. Is there anything you think could help people once they're in that position?
I think there's little things, as you go along, and it's nothing that you guys said it all along before, as you're going through this process and going through this program, keeping, an active reel, as you're going along. And so it's like a month ends and that you want to insert this into your reel, and that you crushed these broadcasts in these last few weeks. Put that on your reel as soon as you can, so you're not 3 months, 4 months down the line and you're digging through all of your class folders to be like, oh my God, what was that one video that I really did well on, or what was that project? Just keep it as fresh as possible and start building that portfolio sooner than later. That's something I know I didn't necessarily put the best effort into, and it's something I don't really do that well even right now. I owe you a couple play-by-play clips for this that I still need to put together, and I told you I'd get it to you a couple days ago. So I'll throw myself out there of procrastinating and already struggling to even get reels together to give you for this podcast when you've given me a month's heads up to do this. So hand in the air, I wasn't ready for this, and it feels like it's midnight and I have to submit my assignment again on the portal, so.
Well, I didn't want to bring back any PTSD to those days, but I get where you're coming from with that. Let's talk about something positive here. You got a call in my class that was an offer for the job that you have now. Kind of, wasn't the exact same job, but with College of St. Rose. I remember being in class and I could tell you had a little bit of that stress, and then you got that phone call and you just lit up. Can you take us through that process of what that was like?
Yeah, it's relief. It's reassurance. It's just kind of all the feelings that I just spoke about a minute ago that start to weigh on you throughout that final month. It's just a lot of weight off your shoulders that that after 20 months and all the hard work and the sacrifice that you put into it, that it's finally paying off in this first step. And I think it's one of those things that, you want to be validated and knowing that the time that you put into this is worth it. And I'm grateful that I got that call at that point in time, and that things didn't go into uncertainty into the weeks after graduation, because I feel like that, that would have been very hard on me. And I know that's something that a lot of people go through in this program, where graduation day comes and that phone call doesn't happen for you, or that offer hasn't materialized yet. And you find yourself having to, pack up from Orlando and go back home. You graduated and you finished and you're like, what's next? And I feel very fortunate and lucky that I didn't have to go through that stress didn't carry on into the weeks after graduation. And I just felt lucky more than anything that I had an answer of what happens next. And you're right, it is relief, and it's happiness, and it's a special moment.
All very true. And I was very happy for you on that day, as I am now. All right. One more Full Sail question. It's actually not about Full Sail. It's about WWE, but I got to touch on this before we move forward. You took part, as you mentioned earlier, in the WWE internship program. I know it went very well for you. You even got the nickname The Don by Dean Wilson as your wrestling name. I don't think you ever used that, but Dean came up with that. But what did you take out of the WWE experience?
That was an interesting opportunity, because I remember being a little bit skeptical, first of all, that because of what how exactly you might be typecasting yourself into what your career could be kind of so early. You take an internship with WWE, I didn't really know of, how do you exit a wrestling career if that's where you started from the jump? I was always worried about that, but it was an incredible experience of to see how a non-traditional, sports entity handles their communications, handles their social media, the things they do to keep their athletes and their superstars, fresh and trained in media relations and public speaking. I got to see firsthand, what their facilities were, and a lot of that, especially the facility-wise stuff, and seeing kind of how they built out, different green screen rooms and little studios. A lot of that stuff that I saw at that point in time in my internship are things that I now have a chance to apply at the College of St. Rose, where I've already pitched and been approved to build out a green screen room and a content studio. And a lot of that is just based off everything that I witnessed at WWE. So to have that beneficial, experience and the memories that came from that, we got to host some cool events there, and it's like, it's its own little different world. And it's kind of a fun little fact, to tell people that I exercised or tried out whatever as a ring announcer in the WWE, however you want to label the experience, that I had a chance to have at least half a foot in that company and had a chance to maybe do bigger things. And I'm very thankful at this point in time of that. It's still paying off into my career as it moves forward, and it's still helping me to this day.
It's like the NFL drawing inspiration from the XFL with all those different camera angles, right?
Mm-hmm.
College of St. Rose taking from WWE to make itself better. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
So that leads us to where you are now. College of St. Rose, your new
Mm-hmm.
role. What's it like living the dream right now?
I right now am like over the moon to be sitting in the role that I'm in. And I am just so excited to be able to have the chance to embrace the responsibilities that are coming, my way. The College of St. Rose and where they stand amongst Division II schools, they have national championship caliber teams year in and year out. We have a women's soccer team that is a perennial Final Four team and provides the opportunity to handle media relations and operations at high level NCAA events. It's a really special place, and there's a lot of amazing things that our student athletes are doing in the classroom and on the field. And I have pretty much at this point free range to do whatever I want to try to highlight those stories. I have full-time roles that I have to hire in these next few weeks to help fill out my team. I've already mentioned what the goals I have in mind of building out a content studio and improving our video aspects of what we can do online. We have a young athletic director there who has my, fully supports everything that we want to do. And it's just feels like it's totally on my side, for everything and the goals we have moving forward. And that just, everything just feels amazing to have everything come together like this. And if I could kind of bring one positive out of, sitting down with you in this interview is, as much as everybody wants to go through this program and be a news reporter and end up, on camera, I would implore and encourage anybody to look out for any other roles like mine in any sort of NCAA program or capacity, because our skills are wanted here. They're extremely valued, and they translate amazingly into what we're doing in terms of video editing and all of that stuff is, there's a lot of opportunities here, and I hope that somebody can sit and listen to, how things have worked out for me after the program and maybe see that it's a career path that they want as well. And you still get to do play-by-play, and you still get to, cut video specials, and you can be on camera as much as you want, and you get to show off a lot more of your skills in the process.
Yeah. So tell me more about how the skills that you learned with us translate into the day-to-day? You've talked about your vision and the things you're pushing for, and I think that strategic part of it is a huge part of your role. But how about day-to-day? What are some of your responsibilities and how do they connect with Full Sail?
So the day-to-day responsibilities in this role, we handle all of the content management of our athletic department's website. So that can go from everything to written content. So we'll be doing game previews, game recaps. We're doing athlete profiles for, in season, we're doing highlights for players who won different Player of the Week awards. We're doing a lot of stuff like that. When award seasons come around, we're doing, video tributes to players who won, special, honors and stuff like that in the conference or the region or the nation, whatever it may be. We handle all the social media aspects of that. So that's graphic design. So we're knee deep in all of the Adobe stuff. And then in terms of game day management, like our actual home games, we're sitting there and we're controlling and managing all the stats of each home games and stuff like that. So you're learning the different operation sides of things as well. You're not marketing, but you're connecting with different media people who are at each game. So get to bump elbows and get to be friendly and text and say hi to all the, the local reporters as you're feeding them all the people that they should be highlighting and stuff like that. So you get to make a lot of friends in this business. And like I said, you go to our college campus, there's just so many different cool things that are going on. And Full Sail's the same way, and just to have a chance to tell those stories, that's the epitome of what the Dan Patrick program was. And Eric Saperstein had the amazing line, his storytelling analogy that he always used to say, like, why am I watching this? Why am I doing this? You have that thought in mind every time that you're putting something online or putting something on social media. You're just a storyteller on behalf of St. Rose right now. So try to find the most compelling things that you could share and try to draw eyeballs to it,
Yeah, that college energy radiating and the positivity of the athletic programs. You're right. It is a lot kind of like what my job is, being around people like you who have your own dreams for different things and are trying to do that and try to put a positive feel on it. From a play-by-play standpoint, Adrian, how is your call now? Like what developments do you think you've had since Full Sail calling all these games that have made you better?
So transitioning from doing Rollins calls and things like that down there to coming up here, I'm doing my play-by-play all alone. So I haven't had a partner in any of the broadcasts that I've had in the last few years, which is a different dynamic of not having a color person to work with. I try in that case not to get too overly analytical. I can call a soccer game and I can go from the play-by-play and still be like, well, that wasn't a good, I could still be critical enough on or congratulatory enough on a certain play. But there is finding that balance of working by yourself and where you fit amongst the play-by-play or color person. Mm-hmm. In terms of improvements, I think that my openings have gotten tremendously clearer. I think that my use of crutch words has greatly decreased because of how much more I've been writing. So all of the writing work that I'll do on the website will help a lot in the voice that I'll have broadcasting, because I won't just keep using the same verbs over and over again, because I've almost found myself with, I've expanded the dictionary a little bit just based off, finding compelling ways to write up the action in the recaps that I do. So that's helped me. And more than anything, I think just, especially sometimes with Rollins broadcasts, we didn't really have, with Rollins, you could be assigned any different sport really in any given week. So you're not the full-time women's soccer broadcaster, you're not the full-time men's basketball. But I definitely have found myself just way more in depth following, what's going on games that I'm not doing. But that's just my job, and needing to be staying up to date on that. It just makes it easier. So yes, I think more than anything, my writing and being able to write more has probably improved my vocabulary and my ability to kind of enhance my storytelling based off just the different words I'm finding myself using more and more.
That makes a lot of sense, and it shows your commitment. You still have that same drive and commitment to getting better and better that you had when you were in our program. And that, just like in our program, same goes for your job. I tell people all the time, hey, you want to succeed in this business, you got to do the same thing you did when you were with us, because what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. And I think you're getting a lot out of it, but wasn't always that steep, rise at College of St. Rose, much like everyone else that graduated around your time. At some point, in way, shape, or form, COVID affected your job, and it affected your job to the point where there was no job at one point. How did you handle that?
Yeah, I got axed, man. I was, fully aware of what's going on in the world, and I had that feeling that once they wiped out that one spring season and things got canceled in 2020, that I kind of had a feeling that I wouldn't probably have an opportunity in the intermediate there. So they did. I got furloughed originally, then I got terminated, and thankfully I just kind of saw the writing on the wall with it. I was already in motion applying to other jobs at that point in time. I knew that I wasn't about to just start playing that game of unemployment, and getting, involved in that. I just wanted to keep working and keep the resume updated and current. So I just found whatever, I was a good video editor. I know Adobe Premiere well. So I kind of parlayed my Adobe skills into a marketing job at a construction equipment company. So that put me over for 8 months or so, and I was able to, keep my head above. Then I'm like, well, I don't know if sports are coming back, period. So then I was like, well, guess I got to go back to construction. So then I was like, I transitioned myself even kind of further away from it all and started managing solar crews. So I did that, for, in the middle of COVID and dealing with that. And, it just kind of brought back the same exact feelings that I had sitting back in the hotel room at that point in time where I was miserable and, saw the writing on the wall and finding an ad for a Dan Patrick school, and it's crazy when you have to, you work these jobs that just, they're not for you, and it's, you're not the happiest in that role, and it just makes you kind of just want to keep grinding until you can land in the spot that is best for you. And lo and behold, I guess I left enough of an impression in the first time I was there that, a full-time opening circled back around with the school, and I was their first call, and they pulled me back out of the ranks of the blue collar, and they gave me a chance to rejoin the team there. I worked there for another couple seasons, and then it was right at the early part of this month that the big boss position opened up, and I was able to transition and make my way into that. So yeah, I mean, it's been close to 3 years since I graduated from there, and I've worked many jobs than just this one, and it's kind of funny how life works out.
Well, that brings up a great point, because a lot of people come to our program because they want to work a job that they enjoy. You've been on both sides of it. You've worked jobs in the industry, outside of the industry, jobs you like, jobs you didn't like. Why is it so important to you to have a job that you are passionate about?
I think it's just what gets you up in the morning, and at least just for me, work I take so much pride in what I do that it's not possible for me to at 5 p.m. each night just shut it off and just drive home, and my night is, separate from whatever it is I just did throughout the day. So I found myself just in these roles, that probably they're not for me, especially for the rest of my life. And I think after certain points of time in each one of them, it just starts to bleed into like your real life, and that unhappiness and that like animosity that you're feeling towards yourself, like almost like a loathing of like, what am I doing? Why am I here? I'm pissed off. I don't like these people. I don't like this boss, whatever it may be. And it sucks, but it's just hard not to have that, not bring that home with you at night, and then all of a sudden that's your mood at the dinner table, and that's your mood talking with your girlfriend or your wife, and you just can't get it out of your head of how bad, not how bad, but how much you didn't enjoy the day before, and just how much you're not going to enjoy the day to follow. And that's just not a good feeling to be in. And I'm not a job jumper like by any means, but I'm somebody who treats jobs as, as like girlfriends, essentially. Like if they don't work for you, if they don't work for you in the present, like they're probably not going to work for you in the future. Like somebody needs to remove themselves from that situation. And jobs aren't going to fire you. Let's put you that way. It's kind of up to you if it's not working to just kind of keep moving along and keep yourself happy for as long as you can until the work can do that for you,
I like that. And jobs will fire you, just not people like you that do your work and do a good job, right? So
I'm trying to get myself fired so much.
George Costanza, right?
I know.
All right. One more that I want to ask you before we get into the kind of the future stuff and the final wrap up is, what's it like working at home? Like not at home, but what's it like working where you grew up?
It adds to the pride I have in what I do, especially as I'm moving into this new role. I love having the ability to tell people where I work, and they first off like know what it is. Where it's like, there's only 3 or 4 really colleges in the Albany area that are like notable Division I, Division II, outfits. One of them, St. Rose. Everybody knows what St. Rose is. Everybody has had a family member or a kid or something go to St. Rose. So there's just that local connection to that community already. The school is 150 years old, so there's a prestige to it. And especially getting to do the broadcasting stuff, it's all online based, but it's our hometown team, like I get to call games for people who, kids I went to high school with played at St. Rose, it's like, it's a special thing, and to, have a chance for my grandma to read about the soccer game that I called like in the paper the next day. Like, that's kind of cool to me, I wouldn't have a chance to do that if I was doing this anywhere else. So it adds to, like just how special all of it is to me. This is it's my hometown school, and just it makes it all the more special.
And they're happy to have someone, I'm sure, with those local connections who understands everything. All right. Well, where do you hope the dreams lead you as you continue in this business and in this job?
So I will say I'm very, very content where I'm at right now, and the role and the responsibilities that I'm in. Like I said, I have unlimited range of what I can do to make this special. And whether that's me still doing play-by-play myself, if I feel like I'm the best option, it's me having the chance to, groom others to, to be successful in ways that I were, and pass along chances for other younger kids in the area that want a chance to step in and have a chance to learn, play-by-play, or if they want to come in and do interviews and all that. I have all those opportunities right now to give to other people. And I think my time through the program, it's not only kind of shown me what makes, a sports broadcaster or just a broadcaster or a journalist, what makes, the journalists themselves talented. But I kind of learned from you guys, just what are the right ways to teach these people, these skills and these traits. So we have a lot of communications at student athletes amongst our programs there. So now I have the chance to bring them into my office and teach them things that I learned from all you guys and all that, because they want to embark on communications careers now. It's just down the road from there. It's just like I'm saying, it's hard to picture being anywhere else right now.
It's a good feeling, isn't it?
Working for a school, I will tell you, especially the one that I'm set up in right now. If I stay here, like, my kids could go to school here for free. Like, I've put now, my family and future, plans are all in place like that now, where I can provide with, the amazing insurance and retirement and the benefits that come with that. I live 10 minutes away from campus. So having that work-life balance, and even though you're still working Saturdays, I get to make my own schedule and I get to do all that. It's just, I'm in an incredible role right now. I owe a lot of it to the school. My skills and everything that got me to this place, I learned from you guys. And like I'll echo it again, if there's anybody who's listening to this and maybe you feel that on air isn't for you and you really want to learn more about the opportunities that can come from working in a communications department and at an NCAA outfit, I hope others know that these opportunities are there and they're really worth it. So.
And I think you make a point that not enough people think about, that there are a lot of avenues to stay involved in this business that may not be what you think of initially. The other thing I think that people's ears perked up for was when you said you need some people and you might consider some Dan Patrick School graduates or students that are in the area. If they want to get involved, what do they need to do if they want to kind of be on that list for you?
Of course, just the first thing is just, reaching out. I understand that, especially if, maybe you're coming from the online platform and, some of the play-by-play opportunities from Rollins weren't there for you. And maybe this is just, your shot number one at it. I'm more than willing to give anybody that chance to want to put together, the starting blocks of what could be your demo reel. That's coming and calling a volleyball game for me, then by all means, that's be happy to do that for anybody, to give you the opportunity. And then also, just make the situation as smooth as possible. I'll give the pointers that I know that have helped me get to where I am. And I just looking to pay it forward, and I need the people too. So it's a little bit of a double-edged sword.
Yes. Always good to have that, right? It helps you, it helps them. That's good for everyone.
Let's help each other.
All right, let's get into a quick dream sequence. I'm only going to ask you 3 of these, but what a dream sequence is I'm just going to say dream this, dream that, kind of top of the mind answers for it. So you mentioned earlier that you generally don't call games with anybody in your current job. Who's the dream color commentator that you would want to work with?
Dream, any sport?
Anything.
Ooh. Right now, I will say I'm incredibly impressed by David Cohn. I think that what he brings to baseball broadcasts, and I've watched him a lot over the last few years on the Yes Network, but I think he's taken a major step in his last few years of his broadcasting abilities. And now we can see it on Sunday Night Baseball. So it's clear that networks are recognizing it as well. But he's one that stands out as somebody who, from a color sitting in the color seat, is somebody I find immensely talented and somebody who would enhance a broadcast.
That shows there's always room for growth. He's been doing it for years. Adrian's noticed him get significantly better recently, it's because David Cohn puts in the work, much like he does with his pitching. By the way, once met his mother on a dinner cruise, and it was fun to talk. She told me about where she was when he threw his no-hitter. And she had to kind of run because it was back before we had what we have now. So she was able to catch like the last couple of innings. So that was interesting. She's like, have you ever heard of she's like, my son used to play professional baseball. Have you ever heard of him? What's his name? David Cohn.
Yeah.
I've heard of him.
You ever heard of my kid?
No, she wasn't like that.
I
She was like being serious. Like she didn't know if I knew who he was. I knew who he was, obviously. All right. Dream venue to broadcast at. Again, anything, any sport.
I don't know. Dream venue. The Carrier Dome. I will say the Carrier Dome. Like
I have done that.
I think the basketball setup at a Carrier Dome is an all-timer for me, man. So I think to be able to sit courtside and look around there, that'd be something special.
I got to go with my own school making it to the Final Four from the Carrier Dome when I was at Maryland. They beat Karan Butler and UConn. It was a hell of a game. But yes, you get yourself to the Dome, right?
Yeah.
College of St. Rose exhibition game to start the season.
They every few years we rotate through with Syracuse.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
last year though, our men's basketball team, we did a preseason exhibition with Albany here.
Oh, cool.
And we were leading like pretty late in the second half.
Oh my God.
Put a scare on them and stuff. So they won't
do it again. Well, Syracuse lost to Lemoyne and they renewed it. So and they started like 28-0 that year too, after losing to Lemoyne.
That year that Syracuse beat Lemoyne, our women's basketball team played UConn in UConn when it was like the Gino.
Oh my God.
Was it 2008, 2009 or something like that? And it was like just a few days after it happened. Like everybody still tells the story like around our department. They're like, well, if Lemoyne can do it, because Lemoyne is in our conference. So they're like, well, if Lemoyne could do it, then we could beat UConn. They lost by 50.
That's pretty good against UConn in that age. But like top 10 teams were losing by 50. So that's not bad. All right. One more for you. I know you're a big Office fan, and I know you're a big fan of the dinner party episode specifically. So you got a dinner party of 5. You're one of them. Who's your other 4 guests? And they don't have to be from The Office. They can be anybody.
Any 4 guests to dinner. Man. Oof. Let's see. Number 1, I will number 1, that's like the first, that sets the whole theme to the whole dinner, whoever the first guest is. And only because it's in my mind, I'll probably say Larry David. Well, he'll be number 1.
University of Maryland grad.
Yep. Larry David could come. I think he needs another funny person to bounce some stuff off, so maybe I'll get back to that later.
Well, you don't got too much time. So
I'd have Kobe Bryant at dinner. That's 2. Got to get a guy who went to space, man. That's a cool story to tell. Buzz Aldrin.
That's who I was thinking when you said space.
So he can talk about all the times that he punched people that thought they didn't land on the moon. I got 3 people there.
One more. 10 seconds.
Michael Scott.
Good choice. Good choice. Hopefully he won't have to sleep on that little.
What a crew.
Yeah, that's a good crew. It's a good crew.
Brian, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Scott.
Awesome. Well, I'll tell you who else is a good crew for any broadcast and really for anything in general. Adrian Donnelly. Adrian, any 10 seconds or less, quick advice for our graduates and students as you wrap up this episode?
Yeah. Where you're at right now is not where you're going to be 10 years from now, and it's not where you're going to be 15 years from now, but embrace it like it's the most important day of your life, and just soak up everything you can every day, no matter if you're working full time or if you're still a student in the program. Just be all in and be a sponge and soak it all up.
Fantastic advice and a great way to end this edition of the Livin The Dream podcast. I want to thank Adrian Donnelly, now working his way up to basically owning the university because he's getting promoted to athletic director positions already. He's only been out of the program for 3 years, but really good to catch up with Adrian tonight. And we will have another guest for you coming up soon. For the rest of you, keep on living the dream.